Guys, Abyss floors 101 to 110 are out, and these kind of are insane. Let's get it. What's going on, guys? This is Arcaden back with you again, starting with Abyss floor 101. And I'm gonna be honest, I spent like a solid 7 hours working on Abyss today. Thankfully, that was on Abyss 101 and 102. 101, not bad, and I feel like with this particular comp that we're going to talk about today, you'll be able to kill it just as fast as I did. So let's take a look at the team, and we'll get right into it. First up on the team is Basar. I actually wasn't playing with Basar at first, but then after hearing Lichbits in the chat talk about it, which if you guys don't follow him, he's a great streamer as well, 2 of Epic 7, and a couple other people who were like, man, we've been theory crafting, we really think Basar can really take you pretty far in this. I hadn't tried it, and Basar kind of was like the attempt that I made right before we got it. So Basar was pretty huge here. He obviously has the ability to strip on his S3. His debuffs are pretty okay, but more than anything, you're looking for the ability to just be able to burn the S3 to get a guaranteed full cleanse of the other team, because those buffs can really hurt and they become pretty annoying later. Also, you can put Basar on Abyssal Crown, and so just like having Dizzy, you're going to want to be able to get as many stuns as you can, stop as much incoming as possible, and he does a pretty good job. Biggest thing in this particular fight too is AoE damage. So if you're looking for characters that are going to be good for this, Basar is definitely one of them. We'll talk about some other options here too. Next in the team is going to be Kiris. I realize we just said that we want to have a bunch of AoE damage, and obviously Kiris just doesn't have that. But Kiris does have AoE on her S2. It's really okay if you're gonna put down any single target damage. I feel like making sure that you're landing tons of poisons on the boss is fine. Kiris damage is going to be what most of your damage is on this particular floor. You're mainly just using her for all of that poison stack. So make sure you bring her. She makes a huge difference. She does not need to be super geared, just kind of enough. You'll notice my stats are like 11,000 health with 800 defense. That's actually faster than I had her when I actually took the floor on. So I actually had her at like 7,000 health with like 500 or 600 defense before this. I ended up changing out this gear specifically for 102 to test out some stuff. So that's where it's at. You don't need her to be crazy geared. I do think the higher health you have on a Kiris, the better, because it's going to actually make her survivable. Being especially that a lot of people will play her at a 5-star rate, which mine is currently 5-star, though I'm thinking about 6-starring, is going to obviously stunt the health, stunt the defense on the character naturally, and so you do want to have at least enough gear to be able to survive. Just like we've been talking about earlier, here's the Dizzy. Dizzy, super helpful to have on this particular team for multiple reasons, but I would say the biggest one being that she can extend poisons from Kiris. She's AoE, so she's going to be able to hit all the targets, no problem, without question. Also, you'll notice I put Isla's Violin on. Isla's Violin is amazingly good, especially if it's at plus 30, to strip a lot of those buffs off in the first couple of phases and get yourself through into the next phase quickly. There's a lot to why she's good, but truly being able to make an extension of your poisons and all of your debuffs with the Dizzy, with using Dizzy and with Kiris, because they both have extenders, is insane. You cut a lot of damage out with the other 3 buffs that Dizzy puts in, which is why you can get away with our last character that we're going to talk about, which is going to be Destina. Destina is one that I never get to play, so the fact that I even am pulling this out is kind of crazy. I've had her on a counter set for a while, but obviously, as you can see, none of her stats are incredible. She's good enough for PvE, and that's kind of where she's going to sit. I went with a counter build Celestine, which was amazing. Anytime we were S1 and we were getting more than just the normal heal, we were also getting Celestine heals, and she was getting, if you put her up front, she ends up taking a good chunk of the incoming damage and gets good heals off. If you needed a big heal on your team, you always had her S3 as well as the S2 to push somebody forward and give them a solid heal too. You'll notice the EE that I chose was the one that dispels 1 debuff from the ally with the lowest health when using Key to an Oath. So when you're using, again, with a counter build, you're going to be using S1s constantly. So being able to cleanse players on your team with those S1s that are going to be coming out, amazing. She does such a good job, and you'll see it as we jump into it. So without further ado, let's take a look at this fight and see why this team works super well. And at the end, we'll talk about a couple of other options and other characters that you could have brought just in case you don't have these particular ones. So as we jump right into phase 1 of this particular fight, there's a couple of things that you're going to want to note right off the bat. Number 1, you cannot auto this beginning part because of the way the boss actually works. So the water-powered Energia is what you're going to spend almost the entire time attacking. Yes, you have AoE damage, so you'll have some inevitable damage damage and inevitable debuffs that are coming in on the other characters. But as far as focused damage goes, you want it to be on the water-powered Energia. Reason why: number one, at 7 turns from that water-powered thing, you actually end up getting a Berserk. And if you hit Berserk, that will actually mean that when you get to the Furious stage in Phase 2, all of the adds that he brings out are going to be elite adds and not normal adds, which means you've pretty much already lost. So you kind of almost Berserk the fight within Phase 1, which is kind of nice in the sense that if you don't pass it, you kind of know that it's not even worth it to go to your next phase. All that said, if you can pass it, which I think it's pretty doable with this, you just want to basically put in all of your time into the water-powered Energia. So you'll notice we have a lot of AoE characters on this team, which you would think like, oh, if I'm trying to like single target something down, why would I do that? Well, this boss doesn't take like any damage when you single target it. So you pretty much are forced into using poisons or AoE attacks that are going to actually be able to kill it down in 7 turns. We tried a couple different things, and I'm going to be honest with you, if it wasn't for having the poisons, even Arbiter Vildred struggled putting down like enough damage to really matter here. So Kiris is phenomenal. Spectre Tenebria is phenomenal. Things like that can actually lay down tons of percentage damage that can start ticking down, as well as things that hit for AoE damage are going to be kind of a thumbs up for this particular fight. Once you do finally crack through this, if you again finish it before it has 7 turns, you'll be ready to go. Pretty much ignore all the other ads. The other one is the guy with the flag will actually kind of bring in 2 other like armored guys at some point during this fight, because he just kind of can bring people in. Don't worry about them either. Literally, again, focus all of your time on the water powered. And between being able to like strip things off with Dizzy and Basar, if you have to, you should be okay. If you have to take a single target attack with Basar, or you have to take a single target with Destina, just hit an ad. There's no reason to necessarily hit the water-powered Energia unless you're going to be using AoE or Kiris just dumping some damage in. So once you get through this phase, we'll jump right into Phase 2. Jumping into Phase 2, you're going to see Furious jump in right off the bat. Assuming that you didn't hit Berserk on the last phase, he'll have 1 of the armor guys and 2 of the patrollers as well. None of them will be elite, so that's actually really, really good. If you were to read through all of the instructions and all of the different things, which I have done for this particular section, I think it would just be so frustrating, like you're reading a book that you're like, which things trigger and proc which things. Let me just try and make this simple for you. Couple of things to watch out for. If you get Furious to 70% and 40%, he will put up a triple skill nullifier on all of the ads here. Make sure that you burn Dizzy and get your S3, S2, which gets rid of two of those skill null things right off the bat, and or your S2 from your Basar, your S2 from your Kiris, something to be able to get rid of those skill nullifiers ASAP. If the skill nullifier is up and Furious gets attacked with any of these AoE attacks, which is where the AoE part of this whole fight kind of is actually not to your benefit, is if he doesn't have those skill nullifiers down, he will actually counterattack and crit the snot out of you, plus have like extra turns that will start happening with all of his ads. Basically, avoid it. Avoid it like anything you can. As soon as you see the 70% and 40% phase happen, clear it. Make sure it's gone immediately. Other things of note for this particular boss, if the skill nullifiers don't go down, that's how you'll get like greater attack buffs on everybody as well. So again, one more reason to get rid of stuff as fast as possible. When you see all the buffs come up it is perfectly fine if you want to burn your Basar to get rid of all the buffs as they come up. That's totally fine, so long as you're ready and prepared with at least a couple of AoEs to be able to deal with the skill nullifiers at 70 and 40. Only other things to really note on this fight is if you do that properly and you make sure that those things disappear right away, you will be fine. You'll notice I screw up at the end of the fight, not even realizing that I didn't actually strip off any of the buffs off of the boss, and it almost killed me. It definitely killed my Dizzy and could have killed my entire team. So what I ended up doing was arcing at the end like twice, which finished the boss off. You might also be in that position at some point, so recognize that that's fine. But between Dizzy, with the Isla's Violin and Basar, if you're getting rid of buffs, you're in a good place. So again, let's just recap. If you're getting rid of buffs, if you're making sure to take out all the skill nullifiers as they come up as fast as possible, you can focus all the rest of your efforts on Kirising and getting as much poison damage as you can on Furious to finish him off ASAP. If you do these things, then it won't get out of control. If you don't, it's going to become very difficult. Don't bother putting in any real effort into fighting the ads. I actually didn't even realize when I was fighting it. You'll notice I hit the ads a lot, and I didn't even realize that it really didn't matter that I did. I just kind of assumed, oh, well, the last boss meant that I shouldn't single target it, so I don't want to single target Furious. It's actually fine to single target Furious. It's really okay. I didn't. You can, so don't worry about that. You definitely can do that during this particular phase and finish off the boss ASAP, and just make sure, again, just you're just refreshing and recycling poisons, and that should finish him off pretty easy. So if you did all the things, you should be just fine. One of the biggest swaps you can make in this entire thing, if you had to bring in another character, would be bringing in Spectre Tenebria, which she can either be on Isla's Violin and swap in directly for your Basar, or you can actually swap out for Kiris as well too. Both of them are totally fine. I think if it was me, I would replace the Kiris with it just to make sure that Basar's there to be able to strip off all of the buffs better. But again, double Isla's is pretty reasonable too. So that is another option. I'm sure there will be other options that people find in the future. This one is a very consistent fight though with this particular team. So if you can pull this off, I definitely suggest it. Guys, if you like the content here, make sure you guys are commenting, subscribing. We'd love to hear from you. We are going to continue to work forward, continue to work through and to get through 102 here just as soon as possible. So be on the lookout for that video, but see you in the next one, boys. Peace.